Tony, it's so great to have you here to talk about everything that you're working on. Man, you've had some incredible experiences. Tell me about just how you got to where you are. I would just love to hear to start like your background and
Yeah.
how you've built this thing.
Yeah. I mean, how far back should I go? From the beginning. I think I'll start there because it really kind of
Yeah.
gives the foundation of what I'm working on today. I like to say I was brainwashed as a kid. That's really kind of like the catalyst of how I'm doing what I'm doing today. But I really was brainwashed. I feel like from my parents, they made me believe I could do anything. And so it was like a huge blessing, to have parents that just made me dream big, right? So anything I ever thought of doing, even when I was a young kid, thinking I was going to be an NFL running back, and obviously like that didn't work out. But to make me believe that I could do that was incredible. Um, but the foundation really started where I grew up. I grew up in a small town in West Texas called Pecos, home of the world's first rodeo. That's our claim to fame. But it's a very humble place, 5,000 people. But everybody feels like family there, because it's just a small town and everybody really just takes care of each other. And so just being in a culture where, you're just willing to help everybody around you, that's just the type of culture and place, Pecos is. And, coming from humble beginnings, I've really had to, I hope I can say work my ass off to get to where I'm at today. So having this combination of just this grit and having to work really hard, but also willing to, help anybody around me, succeed or, get back on their feet, I think was this amazing blessing that I had, that laid out the foundation for me. Um, and with that, going into entrepreneurship, this idea of just, you could do anything. I think you have to have that as a founder, right? So this unwavering confidence in your abilities to succeed and to just, tackle any challenge that you face, building your company. And so, that was really the foundation to, help me become an entrepreneur and start attacking one of the biggest, financial epidemics that we're facing with student debt.
Yeah, so you went to, as I understand it, you went to college and you came out of college like in kind of major debt, as we all do who go to college, right?
Yeah.
Like it's something that really wasn't ever taught to me. Nobody ever like taught that to me that like, hey, you probably shouldn't take out a ton of student loans
Yeah.
for like an English degree or like whatever, like I don't know how
Yeah.
you're gonna pay that back. And so, I think we're waking up to it now, but the problem that you're trying to solve with Chipper, I'd love for you to go deeper there and just kind of the genesis of the company and the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to I feel like I was lied to. This American dream that my parents kind of painted in my head of like, hey, you get good grades, you work really hard, you go to a good school, you get a good job, and then like this American dream is there. And so that was the pursuit. That's the pursuit for most people coming out of places like Pecos, where you're just trying to reach upward mobility. But going through that process and my parents didn't finish high school, so the financial aid process of applying for schools, scholarships, grants, all that stuff was just brand new to us, and we didn't know what we didn't know. And so I had to finance almost every penny to go to college. And then when I left, I had over $100,000 in student debt. And moving, and I went to undergrad in Indiana, and I didn't know out of state tuition was just so much more than in state. And I
Mhm.
actually I didn't even apply to Texas schools because I wanted to get away and just experience a new culture for a little bit. Like I knew I'd be back, to Texas, but I just didn't know it was three times, as expensive. Um, but this idea of like, hey, you go do these things, like life is going to be perfect. And then moving to Austin and having an entry level job, my student loan payments were over $1,200 a month, and I had three or four different servicers, and I just got behind on my loans. And I tried to call my school. My school couldn't help me. They're like, call your servicer. And I would call my servicer. My servicer was like, well, we can help you with these loans, but we don't know what else you have because we don't have them. So you're kind of on your own there. And so I just felt like the system really failed me. And then going into financial advising afterwards, ironically, that's where I saw it was impacting everybody around me. Like it just wasn't me. Student loans don't discriminate. And so it's really, this cloud that's been hanging over people's head over the last 10, 15 years that has essentially like delayed our life from buying homes, starting families, investing, all the things that we're supposed to do when you get a college education and a good job.
Yeah, it really is an epidemic. I love the way you put that because, I'm the same way. Like I think I was the first in my family to go to college. And like you're filling out like the FAFSAs and all these like various grant programs and you don't really know I actually didn't even really know this is a me thing. I didn't even really know why I was supposed to go to college. Like why I should
I
be.
didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. Like I remember I got into an Ivy League school, and when I showed my dad, he was just like, "Cool." He's like, "I don't care where you go. You could go to this school or you could go to like the JC down the road. I don't care, but you're going to school. Like as soon as you graduate, like you're out of here and you're going to get an education, whether
That's
you like it or
great.
not." I'm like, "All right, I'm going." And then getting to college, it's like, you want to go sign up for classes? Well, go to this office and then sign this piece of paper, and then now you can go sign up for classes, and not realizing that I'm signing up for 10, 15K every semester, to take these classes. And
Yeah, the
so
numbers
that
they let
was,
you borrow and they just
oh,
and it's
unreal.
really easy. That's another kinda crazy thing about it is
Yeah,
if you it's pretty easy to get that money. And then the hard part is, like, how you gonna pay it back?
yeah. Well, you don't realize it. I mean, you're 18, 19 years old, you're just happy to be
Yeah.
there. You want to have a good time, learn a little bit, meet some friends. Like you're not realizing the long-term impacts, pulling out all that debt's going to have.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. So, tell me about Chipper. How did you, start that?
Well, let me start before Chipper. So previous to Chipper, I launched a company called Student Loan Genius. It's now called Vault, where we pioneered the student loan benefit. So if you've ever heard of a company paying down debt for employees, we were the first company in that space, and it was an incredible journey. Built it over 4 years. Had incredible investors like Prudential, John Hancock, some of the biggest financial firms in the country, and then working with amazing companies like New York Life, Pinterest, like all these amazing organizations helping their employees pay down debt. So that was my first big swing at solving the student loan epidemic. And it really originated from one of my financial advising clients asking me, like, I have all this money in my 401k. It says I can use it to pay down educational expenses. I want to pay off my student loans with it. And I was like, that's genius. But the IRS doesn't see student loans as an educational expense when it comes to 401ks. Don't ask me why. Those are the rules. They make no sense. But that's where the light bulb went off of like, what if we could get companies that are already contributing to people's retirements and other financial goals, but do it towards student loans? And so, that's what kicked off Student Loan Genius. And after leaving the company there, I knew we were making an impact. We had about 5% of companies in the country offering the benefit. But student loans went from like $1 trillion when I started that company to like 1.6. So I was like, all right, like I want to take another big swing at solving this problem. And I wanted to go directly to consumers. I didn't want to have to go sell to an organization or, have consumers need to work for one of these employers who could afford to do this to get the help they needed. And so that's where Chipper came in. And Chipper, we launched in 2018. It was kind of at the heyday of when Acorns and Digit and all these incredible finance apps were getting their start, where they were using micro investing to just get people to start saving and investing, with roundups or with small increments each week. And I was like, what if we could do the same thing, but to chip away student loan debt? So hence the name, Chipper. And so we launched the company in 2018. We were doing awesome, got featured in the App Store, really started to blow up. But we got lucky. We put a chatbot inside of the app for tech support, and we started getting all these questions in about refinancing, student loan forgiveness, like all these things that we didn't do. And so that's where the light bulb went off for us of like, hey, it looks like people really need help on managing their debt, on trying to figure out what to do before they want to start paying off faster. And so we pivoted the company, and the timing was impeccable. We pivoted the company at the beginning of 2020, and started focusing on what we do today. And so our core focus is we help people figure out what's the best repayments and forgiveness program that they're eligible for, and we call it automatic enrollment. We help them actually get into those programs with a couple of clicks. And pandemic hits in March of 2020. No one's paying student loans, and so like our pivot was just the perfect timing. Like you can't write a better story.
Yeah, how did COVID affect your business?
I mean, the pivot the pivot was of going to more of a management part of student loans. I think we would have focused just on chipping away, we would have died. But because we started to focus on public service loan forgiveness and helping people optimize their debt, that gave us life, and we were able to find a big niche of users, and that were teachers, nurses, social workers, people who qualify for these programs that still had this debt that even though they didn't need to pay, they wanted to apply for forgiveness. So as soon as payments came back, they could have it all wiped away, like they were promised. Um, but as payments kept getting extended, we're on our ninth extension now. So this month has been 3 years of people not having to make a student loan payment. And somehow through our grits and just finding the right pockets of users, we've been able to continue to grow from zero to over 150,000 users. But it's been tough. It's really been tough, especially with the VC market, that's going on right now. And
Yeah.
and you know, we raised a nice seed round last year, and so it's like trying to make that last. Like it's been a grind. It's been a grind for sure.
Yeah, let me ask you this: since you brought it up, how did the Silicon Valley Bank stuff affect you?
Um, so luckily, we weren't impacted directly by the SVB situation. Our payroll provider, uses their pipes, so I think our payroll was delayed 1 or 2 days. But we bank with another provider, so luckily we were not impacted. But I will say I felt like a therapist the entire week, that entire weekend. Because so many of our friends that are founders that had their money tied up, and then it was interesting also being here in Austin during South by Southwest. So you see people at the happy hours and the events, smiling, like trying to have a good time, but then turning away really quick, and they're dealing with the situation of like, where's our money? Are we going to get it back? Like, what's going on? And so it was really just being, a mentor, just an ear for a lot of founders who were actually dealing with it. It was pretty scary. It was a tough couple of days for founders that were directly impacted.
Yeah, man, it was a crazy time. That whole weekend was wild. And then like you get to
Sucks.
Monday and it's like, "Oh, you're all right." That was weird.
It's all back. It was like a fire drill almost, right?
Yeah,
Like
it was very crazy. I want to touch on something that you mentioned previously around like the feds have like made it so no one has to pay back student loans right now. Am I right about that?
federal loans, which is,
Yeah.
it's 95, 96% of the bulk of student loans. So nobody has to make a payment, and also interest is not accumulating, which is what's really made student loans balloon over the last 10, 15 years.
So how long does that go on? Like is that sustainable? What's
I'm not I'm not going to predict anything anymore. I've predicted payments resuming for the last, year and a half, 2 years. And I've been wrong like every single time. But it's good. Like it's what's needed right now for consumers, for people, with student debt, especially with inflation, the cost of expenses going up, all the other things we're dealing with in the workforce. Like it's what's needed right now. What we're what it feels like what's going to happen is in February 28th, the Supreme Court heard a case regarding debt relief that President Biden announced in the fall of last year. And based off when that ruling is made, which we expect it to be June or late June, early July, repayment is supposed to start 60 days after that. So we're looking at August, September of when payments would resume again. And so that's what we're planning for. Like that's when we expect it to all like happen and everything to kind of come back to normal regarding student loans. But if you ask my confidence of like, is that exactly what's going to happen? It's a coin flip right now. It's 50-50. Like we really have no idea, when, payments are actually going to start,
yeah,
which
who
it's tough
knows?
to, run a business when, you don't know when it's happening.
Yeah, I wonder, like, obviously Washington doesn't take into account everything, kind of like the effects that they have, maybe unintentional or intentional. But yeah, that is a crazy thing to be in your business and just having like, oh, nobody has to do anything for a while. That's pretty crazy.
Yep. It's our VCs, they're like everyone's facing challenges right now. Like everybody, everything that's going on, it's tough. But for you guys, you guys are getting, it's been a tougher journey for us. Like our goalpost continues to change, but luckily we have an amazing group of investors who really believe in our mission and are going to be around to, help us see this vision through.
Yeah, what was it like to raise money for all this? And, like, who did you raise from, and did you raise in
Mhm.
Austin? I'd love kinda like, that experience.
Yeah, so we raised a $5.6 million seed round last year. Our leads were Freestyle Capital, so love Dave and the team out there in Silicon Valley. Propel Ventures, like also in San Francisco, big fintech focused fund, and Slauson and Co. I'll say it's the number one fund right now for minority and women founders solving problems for underrepresented communities, and they're based out of LA. So those are the bulk of our investors, but we also had incredible founders like John Henry from Loop, Craig Lewis from Gig Wage, Ethan Block, founder of Digit. So not only did we get the mix of VCs that we wanted, but we also had incredible founders and some, obviously a lot of our previous investors use their pro rata to continue to support us. And a lot of that is in Austin. So a lot of our angels, Capital Factories invested twice in Chipper. Like we have a lot of support locally as well.
Yeah, tell me, I know you do a lot of work around this, around, underrepresented communities, particularly the Hispanic community and other, kind of minorities. Why is that so important to you? And how do we, and the collective we, and anyone who's in tech or business kind of, support that?
Yeah. I mean, the reason it's near and dear to me is because I've faced the challenges of, trying to raise capital, from traditional VCs. I didn't, go, through the typical routes of being an engineer or being in the tech community. Like I came from financial advising with an idea for a financial advice or for a financial product that turned into a technology company, right? So I didn't have the network, I didn't have the connections to get into VCs. So like with Student Loan Genius, I had 59 no's before I had my first institutional investor invest. Um, and I know that's the challenge that a lot of people who have amazing ideas that are solving problems for, millions of people in the country, are facing. Like, hey, I
Mhm.
need capital in order to get this off the ground. And so trying to be a mentor, trying to make those connections, trying to do everything I can to, help these founders, save time really and advance, their business as quickly as possible. That's really my goal. I love to say like as I climb my pool, so every single rung that I'm going up, or like every level of that mountain, like I'm trying to bring the entire community with me. Um, your second question around, what could the community be doing? I think it's we saw what happened. I think post George Floyd and the movement that happened with VCs and other funds coming out and everyone trying to get involved to start to help more minority and women founders. Like that was incredible to see. So like I feel like that was like a nice rush of 18, 24 months of, you know, uh, black and brown founders getting 2 or 3x the amount of capital they were getting before, right? But what we saw this past year is the numbers that are being invested into Latino and Black founders is back to pre-pandemic levels, right? And so as things get tough, or it feels like VCs are kind of getting back into, the playbook that they have. And so, the excitement, the momentum, the stats and reports that every organization was printing, as they were making those investments, like I want that to continue to so they can see what's actually happening right now, because we're feeling it, right? And that's the conversation that's happening internally, with other founders and accelerators around the country of like, what could we be doing differently, right? It's not like there's less deal flow. It's not like the ideas are there, but the amount of funding is shrinking at a dramatic pace, and I feel like we may be less than pre-pandemic levels, after we see the numbers for 2023.
What's going on in Austin? The growth of Austin has been unbelievable. I live in Utah, and, the growth here has been crazy, But Austin is like it's transformed. It's a whole different place. Can you talk about like the startup and tech ecosystem in Austin and how that's changed?
Excuse me. Absolutely. So I've been in Austin since 20 or 2008. So I've seen this, obviously like it's been growing since, early 2000s with the tech boom then, but to see it grow from 2008 to what it is today, and then being a part of like Capital Factory and really just the center of gravity for technology here in Austin, like it's been amazing. Um, it's, I think, great for founders in one sense where you're having a ton of people moving to Austin, so the talent pool is here, right? There's a lot of more collaboration going on. You're starting to see more VCs come in town, more capital is kind of flowing through. And one of the biggest gaps we had in Austin was getting that seed round, getting that post angel, pre Series A. That was the biggest gap that we saw over the last 5 or 6 years, but that's now starting to get filled, which is fantastic. That means more ideas are coming out and getting tested, and hopefully we'll start to see the lagging indicators of that over the next couple of years. But in addition to that, you also have huge corporations coming, right? Like Oracle moved their headquarters here. Tesla's in town. Like HP. I mean, just there's so many companies have come and started to build bigger offices. Amazon, and although it's great for Austin as a whole, it's also been challenging as a founder, as a startup, to acquire talent, right? Because now you're competing against those salaries. And so we faced it after our seed round of trying to build our engineering team and the rest of our team. It's like now you're dealing with a lot of these organizations who can pay top dollar, and in most cases startups can't do that. And so it's, you kind of see the good and bad of what's happening in the technology space. But overall, it's fun. It's exciting to be here. We're not leaving anytime soon. We have 3 kids. Like Austin's going to be home for at least the next like 15, 16 years.
Well, it's just such a great, incredible city. And 6th Street is really cool. Do you ever get lost on 6th Street late at night?
Not as much as I used to. That's for sure. It's like I want to enjoy my weekends now. If I go do that, I'm out till Monday.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
for sure. For
but
sure.
it is fun. Like you drive downtown, and it's like, when did this high rise go up? It's like I haven't been downtown in like 3 weeks, and like a whole new like skyscraper is getting built. So it's like it's awesome.
Yeah, it's unbelievable the growth of Austin. Growth of a lot of places outside of Silicon Valley has been incredible, and I do think COVID accelerated that to a
Absolutely.
pretty insane extent. I wonder what your thoughts are on the future of education. Like, how do you think we're going to be learning 10 years from now? Like, how could we? Why don't we all just get degrees on Chat GPT 4 or I guess 8 and
we sh-
then like yeah.
oh, we should. I hope that we can. I was actually my daughter's starting her first business. She's 9. And so we were getting content, ideas using ChatGPT yesterday. She's like, "This is amazing," and I was like, "Uh oh." I was like, I'm just interested to see like how they're going to use it. Are they just going to be copying what's on there, or it's just I'm excited to monitor like how she uses that technology. But the future of education, it's definitely changing. However, the universities, the public institutions, like they still have a stronghold on our education system, right? A lot of careers, a lot of jobs, are still require a bachelor's degree or master's degree, or that's like the first thing they're looking for before they hire anybody. So depending on which industry you're going in, getting a formal education is still going to be part of the process to get educated. But we've seen some big organizations, Google. There's been a few Fortune 500s who have said, we're not requiring a college degree anymore to hire somebody. And so I'm hoping that kind of catches, and we can have people start to take more online courses, certifications, and not have to go through the traditional 4 year university process and take a lot of classes that you're never going to apply, that you don't really want to take, but you're having to pay for, and especially if you're pulling out student debt for that. And so I think we're going to definitely move to more of like a virtual online educational system. Schools need to get more innovative on, looking at the future of what kind of skills they need to provide, their students, so that they can actually go into the workforce and be successful. Um, and I'm hoping that will help alleviate some of the cost, right? Like we've seen tuition skyrocket 7%, a year, like almost consistently over the last 15 years. I'm hoping that that's going to get pulled back because people aren't going to be having to take a lot of electives and additional classes because they're just taking core focus classes, online. Um, and as right now we're seeing just so many changes in technology and innovation happening, for jobs, whether it's design, chat gbt stuff, or content writing. Like, things are moving so rapidly. I believe we're going to also have employers really start to connect with a bunch of universities and just continue to just increase the education within their organizations, right? So instead of having people go to, get an MBA, or, go to like a university, they'll be able to, start to provide the classes and certifications internally and really, really control that more. And hopefully that also reduces the cost and prevents people from going to student loan debt.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder how AI is gonna change Chipper. Or how are you thinking about integrating this technology? I mean, I think everybody's gonna be an AI company to some extent.
Absolutely. I mean, we've already started a test, ChatGPT, AI, like whatever you want to call it, right? In a couple different ways. One is just from a content perspective, right? There is so much confusion and knowledge that needs to be shared around student debt. And being a startup, having limited resources, we can't afford to hire multiple writers to write all the content that we want. And so we've started to test out different content strategies and essays, social posts, blogs, just to see how accurate it is, right? Because also we don't want to be giving out, the wrong information. And so it's not where we need it to be yet. But for certain types of content that we need for our website or for social, it does an amazing job. But also to just kind of get brainstorming going as well. Um, we're also going to be testing out soon. We had a discussion about this last week of testing out, a chat GBT, or within our chatbot within the Chipper app. They have a new AI integration where it could essentially take over your support. So instead of having a person having to message all the users coming in, based off the questions, they could read it and then provide like an accurate reply for whatever question, whether it's a technical issue or like an actual student loan issue. So we're starting to put that in place and start to test it and make it better. And so that's the first two use cases right now. As we look into the future, I'm not sure yet. Like we haven't thought that far. I think we're waiting for payments to resume before we really start to look at what does our product roadmap look like integrating AI.
Oh yeah, the payments thing and the just total pause of that is so I can't even imagine being in your shoes, like running that business, and the federal government is like, "Hey, we're just putting that on hold for years. Like, just take it easy."
It's like another 6 months. Like, oh, okay, all right. So board and investors, the plan that we had, like we're gonna nix that, and we're gonna like here's what the next 6 months looks like.
That is
It's been
crazy
it's been
actually
fun.
to think about. Finally, I ask everybody this question at the
Yeah,
end, because at CEO.com, we believe chances given are just as good, if not better, than chances taken. So the chances you take on yourself, but the chances you give to others are incredible. I'd love to
yeah.
hear from you and somebody or something that gave you a chance.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I would say my father. Like one of my favorite quotes ever is from Jimmy Valvano. He said, "My dad gave me the greatest gift you could ever give another person, and is that he believed in me." And so, big shout out to my dad for being the biggest believer in my dreams and everything that I'm doing today. He sacrificed so much to make it all happen. And so if it wasn't for that and that support, like I don't know where I'd be. Um, Also, I love to give a shout out to Capital Factory here in Austin. Um, yeah, like I mentioned, going from a financial advisor to the technology space, which is like on the opposite spectrum of innovation. Like, I had no idea what I was doing when I was getting into tech, and I found a home at Capital Factory where I like to say you can get an MBA in startups in 3 months just by being there, meeting with all the mentors, and everything they do to support first time founders or founders in general, but definitely first time founders, to just really, learn like how do you do all this stuff? How do you build tech? How do you hire a team? How do you go raise capital? If it wasn't for them, I definitely wouldn't be here today. So big shout out to Josh Bear and the entire team there. And lastly, um, you know, you can work as hard as you want. You can have the best ideas, but you can't do it alone. And I've had two mentors who have really been there with me the entire way. They've really been coaches of life, not just in business and startups, but really, how do you balance this? So, while also having a family, while also taking care of your health and all the challenges that I faced over the last couple of years. So, if it wasn't for them to bounce ideas off, to get feedback, to let me cry and vent, like I definitely wouldn't be here today.
That's beautiful, man. You've built something incredible. And, man, Capital Factory really is like the hub of Austin. It's, the amount of energy you feel. I've been there a couple times. It's a incredible, incredible place and a real gem for. I mean, I don't see that replicated anywhere else. It's pretty unique.
Yeah, and that's one thing I love about Austin too, right? It's like I feel like Austin is a place where if you need help, if you're asking for something, like the community in Austin as a whole, but definitely within the tech community is willing to do everything they can to help you succeed. And I think Josh and the team there have really capitalized on that and the culture of Austin to make it what it is today. But hey, you guys are doing great things out in Utah too. Like we hear about it. I haven't seen it in a while. I haven't been out there in a couple of years, but we hear the buzz. It sounds like you guys are next.
Come on out. We got a big event coming up in September. I'll send you tickets. Tony, thank you so much for coming on. So incredible to talk to you and learn how you built Chipper. We'll see you down the line, my friend.
Hey, it's great to meet you. Thanks for having me on.